and they call it the Shu-Ha-Ri approach. That's a term that comes out of ancient Japanese martial arts.
So I would like to understand also a little bit better about your teaching philosophy. We've had some pretty good conversations about how you view learning, and I think your approach to that could really help a lot of people understand themselves and also how to learn this field a little bit better.
Sure. Yeah, I've kind of adopted a principle. I didn't really know what it was until it was something I'd always done, but didn't have a formal name for it. And when the world of agile software development started emerging in the early 2000s, there were some best practices and names put to these things, and I kind of came to the conclusion that, oh, that's what I believe, so to speak. And really the main philosophy that I try and pattern my teaching after comes out of the two of the folks that put together the Agile Manifesto back in the early 2000s. That's Martin Fowler and Alistair Coburn. But they talked about a method of, it was, for them, it was how software developers learn a new skill. But I think it applies to any skills-based training, including obviously data science. And they call it the Shu-Ha-Ri approach. That's a term that comes out of ancient Japanese martial arts. You can get the backstory on Wikipedia. I won't spend the time in our conversation going through all that, but it's basically a pattern of a learner goes through 3 phases before they master a skill. And so the first skill, which is the Shu, part of Shu-Ha-Ri, Shu means to obey or follow. And as a beginning learner that has no perspective and no background on the skill that they want to learn, they basically are coming into training with the desire to just have a recipe for success. So, give me the steps that I need to follow so that if I apply those same steps to any situation that I encounter, I'll be successful. How do I load a CSV file in Python? How do I, set up a model to be trained? How do I fit versus predict a model and so forth? So just give me the steps. It's a recipe, and we've all seen those, but that's kind of the first part of learning. It builds their confidence and it gives them some skills that they can apply immediately. And then the second phase, the Ha phase, that's basically now the translation, I think, has to do with learning from multiple masters. So you don't have one single master, speaking of martial arts, not in training, but you're basically learning from multiple sources. So this is the stage where now I can read, a Python API in the documentation, and I can query. I can formulate questions as to what I want to do, and I can find sources to get those answers, whether it's on Stack Overflow and I get a code snippet, or here's the API that does that thing, to sort a data frame or something like that. And I can understand it to the point of, I can read what the parameters are, what they mean, and I can structure my code according to that. And it really is the optimization of what I learned in the first step. So now it's not just the one way of doing it that's successful, but now, there's keyboard shortcuts, there's optimized training perhaps in the learning model. It's a more robust solution, or it can be generalized to other problems as well. So you're now in that step where you're much more self-guided than you were in the first step. And then the final step, the re-step, that means to leave, and that basically is where you're now just completely improvising, because you have enough building blocks that any problem that you're faced with, you can, you have enough tools at your disposal that you can say, well, I'm going to use this technique that I used on this project to gather my data. I optimize the model on this other project, and I'm going to throw that in there. And I'm now going to use this fancy API for displaying my results and so forth. So, unfortunately, a lot of people that go into training or provide training, a lot of times it's the experts in the field. They've been at it so long, they end up starting people out with the last phase. And it's like, if you want to learn data science, you got to learn how to read an API, or, I'm going to teach you these 10 things and you have to be able to piece them together for a new project. And it's just, it's at best discouraging and at worst, failure inducing.